8. Two-story fall. In April 2023, a construction worker in Pittsburgh faced a harrowing accident at the site of the new First National Bank Tower, located in the 600 block of Washington Place. The incident occurred at around 8:30 a.m. when the worker fell from the 26th floor to the 24th floor. The outcome was a series of injuries, including an open fracture in his leg, abdominal discomfort, and injuries to his shoulder and elbow. Swift action was taken by Pittsburgh Public Safety, who promptly responded to the emergency call. On their arrival at the scene, they discovered the injured worker in a surprisingly alert state. Despite the severity of his injuries, he was then carefully transported to the hospital for immediate medical attention. Rescuing the injured worker presented its own set of challenges. Medics resorted to using a crane on the construction site, showcasing the dedication and resourcefulness of the rescue team. First National Bank, the organization overseeing the construction project, issued a statement expressing their concern for the injured worker. The worker was identified as an employee of the Century Steel Erectors, a subcontractor involved in the construction project. The bank conveyed its well wishes for the worker's speedy recovery and assured that they were closely coordinating with the worker's direct employer to stay updated on his progress. Additionally, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an investigation into the incident. Their presence on the worksite is aimed at reviewing safety protocols and ensuring that all necessary precautions are in place to prevent such accidents in the future. First National Bank pledged full cooperation with OSHA's efforts to enhance workplace safety. This unfortunate incident showcases the risks that construction workers face daily and underscores the importance of rigorous safety measures on construction sites. 7. Bus driver versus White Claw. In an incident that unfolded in Smithtown, New York in October 2023, a bus driver found herself in hot water for allegedly consuming an alcoholic beverage while transporting students home from school. The severity of the situation underscores the potential risks to children on the bus. Amal Hanna, the bus driver in question, sat down for an emotional interview in which she explained her side of the story. She claimed that the entire incident was a result of a major misunderstanding. On the day in question, as she was heading to work, Hannah reached for what she believed to be a regular seltzer left in the fridge by her roommate. However, there was an unexpected twist. Hannah stated that she had no knowledge that the seltzer she picked up was a White Claw, an alcoholic beverage. Her troubles tasting due to ongoing chemotherapy treatment further complicated the matter, as she couldn't discern any alcohol content in the drink. It was only when someone noticed the hard seltzer in her cup holder on the bus that Hannah was immediately removed from her position. The We Transport Bus Company responded to the incident by releasing a statement, emphasizing the complete unacceptability of the alleged conduct. As a result, the driver was promptly relieved of her duties, and thankfully, the police in Suffolk County determined that Hannah genuinely didn't realize she was consuming an alcoholic beverage, leading to the decision not to file charges against her. Numerous parents came forward to vouch for Hannah's character and professionalism. With 15 years of experience as a bus driver, she had built a reputation for being meticulous, punctual, and for treating the children she transported as if they were her own. This incident shows how even well-intentioned individuals can find themselves in challenging situations, and it highlights the potential consequences of alcohol consumption while responsible for the safety of young passengers. 6. Smallpox. In October 2019, a lab worker in San Diego found herself in a precarious situation after refusing the smallpox vaccination. While conducting an experiment on mice, the 26-year-old accidentally pricked her finger with a needle containing the vaccinia virus, which is a genetically modified strain related to smallpox. The incident occurred when she was attempting to inject the vaccinia virus into the tail of a mouse. Realizing her mistake, the lab worker promptly informed her supervisor and sought medical care at the emergency department. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, published an account of the accident in the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, shedding light on the consequences of the accidental exposure. On day 10, the worker's finger had already become swollen, and by day 12, her symptoms had escalated, leading to treatment for fever, swollen lymph nodes, pain, and a worsening of the infection in her finger. Medical intervention included the administration of vaccinia antibodies and tecovirimat, a virus inhibitor designed to reduce her fever and inflammation. But despite these efforts, the situation took a grim turn, as the tip of her finger began to turn black and rot. It would take 3 long months for the infection to fully clear up. The decision to decline the smallpox vaccination was attributed to her concerns about potential side effects. The report highlights that she hadn't fully appreciated the extent of infection risk associated with the vaccinia virus when the vaccination was initially offered. As a result of the incident, the lab worker took a 4-month leave of absence from her job to ensure that she didn't inadvertently spread the infection to others. 5. Instant incineration. Tragedy struck in Mapleton, Illinois in November 2022, when a 39-year-old worker, only on his 9th day of employment at a Caterpillar-operated foundry, lost his life in a horrific incident. The worker fell into a vat of molten iron, an accident described by the Department of Labor as immediately incinerating him. Federal investigators swiftly launched an inquiry and found that inadequate safety measures may have played a role in this unfortunate fatality. They proposed a fine of $145,027 for Caterpillar, the operator of the foundry. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, a division of the Department of Labor, determined that the foundry exposed employees to serious fall hazards. Despite their work being in close proximity to deep ceramic containers of molten iron heated to extreme temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 1,093 degrees Celsius, the proper precautions weren't in place to prevent such a disaster. Caterpillar was given just 15 days to decide how they would respond to these proposed penalties. They could either ensure compliance with the safety regulations, request an informal conference with OSHA, or challenge the investigation's findings. OSHA's regional administrator in Chicago, Bill Donovan, highlighted the avoidable nature of the tragedy, noting that Caterpillar's responsibility to have the required safety protections in place was a crucial factor. He emphasized that Caterpillar, as one of the nation's largest foundries, should be well aware of industry regulations designed to safeguard workers operating in hazardous environments. Caterpillar, in response, expressed condolences for the deceased worker's family, friends, and colleagues, underlining their commitment to prioritizing safety across their global locations. So, in an effort to mend what was done, the company affirmed its intent to engage with OSHA to find a suitable resolution to the review. 4. One too many mistakes. In late March 2021, a startling audit conducted in Tarrant County, Texas, revealed numerous mistakes in the work of Dr. Mark Krause, a suspended deputy medical examiner who'd been in service since 1981. This audit, conducted by Tarrant County medical examiner Dr. Nizam Pirwani, not only uncovered Krause's errors, but was itself found to contain inaccuracies. One of the most concerning revelations was that Krause made a total of 59 mistakes in 40 homicide cases he handled. This extraordinary number of errors prompted his suspension from performing autopsies in homicide cases. His troubles began when he mistakenly identified a bullet wound as a surgical incision, leading to the exhumation of the victim's body. The subsequent audit further questioned his capabilities, and as a result, Krause was placed on administrative leave in March 2021. The potential ramifications of Krause's errors are vast, with hundreds of cases in Tarrant County potentially affected. Defense attorneys were tasked with investigating each case to determine if issues need to be raised in court. An independent review of Krause's work was initiated by the Dallas County District Attorney's Office, led by John Krausot. Tarrant County prosecutors rescued themselves from the investigation, but provided the audit to defense attorneys. While the audit generally upheld Krause's determinations of the cause and manner of death in most cases, it criticized him for consistently failing to request or review ambulance reports and hospital records. The audit also found instances where Krause failed to confirm a victim's identity through fingerprint or other scientific means, and neglected to collect blood samples. 2 particular cases were described as egregious due to the severity of Krause's errors. In one case, he failed to notice a second bullet during an autopsy, resulting in an incorrect determination of the number of gunshot wounds the victim suffered. And in another case, the audit revealed that Krause inappropriately classified the cause of death as homicide without conducting a full autopsy or recovering a bullet. The audit itself wasn't immune to mistakes, containing errors in case details and some discrepancies in information. However, Dr. Pirwani, who conducted the audit, downplayed these errors as typographical mistakes. The Tarrant County District Attorney's Office has expressed its commitment to providing amended audit findings to defense attorneys, but didn't directly address whether they have confidence in the audit. Dr. Krause, who remains unreachable, has left many questioning the integrity of homicide investigations and the pursuit of justice in Tarrant County. 3. Severed leg. In early November 2022, a peculiar workplace accident in St. Paul, Minnesota, resulted in a man suffering a severe leg injury. The incident unfolded just before noon when the police and medics responded to reports of a potential pedestrian vehicle collision at the intersection of Rice Street and Geranium Avenue West, located near the North End neighborhood. And to their surprise, they discovered it was a cable installation work site. At the time of the incident, workers had a cable set up across the road, permitting vehicles to drive over it. Unfortunately, though, something went awry when the cable somehow got entangled with a passing vehicle. Tragically, the cable ensnared a nearby worker, tightly wrapping it around his leg. As a consequence, the cable forcefully pulled him onto the street, where he collided with the side of a pickup truck. The tension in the wire was so great that it severed his leg around the knee, resulting in a grievous injury. Swift action was taken, and the injured man was promptly transported to Regions Hospital. The good news is that his injury, though undoubtedly severe, wasn't deemed life-threatening. Authorities launched an investigation to delve into the circumstances surrounding this unusual and unfortunate incident. Workplace safety remains a critical concern, and incidents like this remind us of the importance of stringent safety protocols to prevent accidents and protect workers' well-being. 2. Maple Springs mine accident. In early October 2023, a tragic accident at a Somerset County mine claimed the life of a mining company employee. The incident occurred at the Maple Springs mine near Hallsopple, and the accident involved a shuttle car. LCT Energy, the mining company, confirmed that the man became trapped between the shuttle car and an interior wall of the mine. The work crew underground at the time consisted of 4 miners who also happened to be licensed emergency medical technicians. They assessed the injured worker's condition and led the effort to bring him to the surface. But unfortunately, despite their best efforts, he was pronounced dead at the scene. The victim was identified as 37-year-old Brendan Frederick by Somerset County Coroner Cullen Swank, who determined the cause of death to be accidental, citing multiple blunt force injuries. LCT Energy expressed deep sadness over the tragic death and extended their condolences to the affected family and friends. The incident prompted the State Department of Environmental Protection to order a temporary halt to operations in the affected section of the Conemaugh Township mine. Inspectors are currently interviewing mine personnel and initiating an underground investigation to determine if corrective measures are required. Both the State Department of Environmental Protection and the Federal Mine Safety and Health Administration are conducting separate but coordinated investigations into the incident to ascertain the circumstances that led to this unfortunate accident. Notably, this mine had faced a previous tragedy in March 2022, when a scoop operator, Paul Springer, lost his life after being struck by a falling boulder. Federal investigators had determined that the shape and lack of visible cracks in the boulder had made it difficult for miners to predict the risk of it falling. Consequently, the company modified its roof control plan to enhance safety. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear even more stories, stay tuned for some extra content that you might have missed. 1. Shoplifting. In a tragic incident that happened in June 2010 in Fort Worth, Texas, a Walmart worker's brave attempt to thwart a shoplifter's theft of a $328 television ended in a devastating head injury, ultimately resulting in his passing. Bruce Florence, the dedicated Walmart employee, made a fateful decision to intervene when he noticed a shoplifter attempting to steal the TV. But sadly, this act of courage led to dire consequences. As Florence tried to apprehend the shoplifter and recover the stolen television, the shoplifter retaliated by knocking him to the hard concrete floor. Florence remained conscious and able to communicate while receiving medical care. But his condition took a turn for the worse on Father's Day, marking the beginning of a heartbreaking chapter for his family. Bruce Florence's wife, Kathy Florence, expressed her husband's unwavering commitment to his job, even in the face of significant personal challenges. He was unwell and was awaiting a liver transplant, but he was still determined to work diligently to provide for their family. Kathy rightly pointed out that the shoplifter, a 37-year-old individual, should have been trying to get a job instead of engaging in theft. William Allen Kennedy, the suspected shoplifter, was arrested by Fort Worth police and was believed to be connected to several thefts in the area. The grief and anger in the Florence family were palpable. Kathy expressed a desire for the harshest punishment for Kennedy, saying, "I hope they give him the electric chair." Bruce's 14-year-old daughter, Kelsey, echoed the sentiment, believing that the thief had taken her father's life. Bruce Florence left behind a family of 3 children and 2 stepchildren. He was described as an outstanding Walmart associate who never treated anyone as a stranger, and he was a beloved friend to many. Despite his church duties as a deacon and his commitment to working multiple jobs to support his family, Florence's tragic and untimely passing serves as a poignant reminder of the price he paid for his dedication. William Allen Kennedy faced initial charges of aggravated robbery, but police contemplated adding a murder charge pending the results of the autopsy. This heartbreaking incident underscores the risks faced by employees who, driven by a strong work ethic, attempt to thwart criminal activity and protect their workplace. But it also raises questions about the balance between personal safety and corporate responsibility in such situations.
Number 8. Sheila Davalo and Nelson Sessler. Pharmaceutical research scientist Sheila Davalo married Paul Christos in 2000 after her first husband caught her having an affair with him. The once passionate romance soon fizzled out, and in 2001, Davalo met and began sleeping with her co-worker Nelson Sessler. Sessler had no idea Davalo was married, and she wanted to keep it that way. To maintain her double life, she convinced her husband that her mentally ill brother periodically came to stay with her at the couple's home outside New York City, and that his presence would upset the troubled young man. Christos stayed elsewhere during these visits, apparently unaware that his wife was actually having her boyfriend over. In 2002, Sessler ended what he thought was a summer fling with Davalo to pursue a relationship with another co-worker named Annalisa Raimundo. They became a couple and began living together, unaware that Davalo was boiling over with jealousy. One night, Davalo broke into Raimundo's apartment with sinister intentions. She then bludgeoned and stabbed the woman to death. Afterward, she dialed 911 from a payphone, pretending to be a neighbor, and she said she overheard an attack. Davalo gave a fake description of a male suspect, and the case quickly became a whodunit. Meanwhile, her affair with Sessler resumed, but there was one more person to remove from the equation: Davalo's husband. So she stabbed Christos twice one day after tricking him into thinking she wanted intimacy, but he somehow convinced her to drive him to the emergency room. Before taking off, Davalo stabbed Christos one more time. Miraculously though, he survived, and there were witnesses to the attack. Davalo was convicted of attempted murder and assault and was sentenced to 25 years to life. By then, detectives had connected her to Raimondo's murder, and after building a solid case, they took it to trial. She was found guilty and was sentenced to an additional 50 years in Connecticut, where she'll be transferred after serving her first sentence in New York. Number 7. Megan Hall. In late 2022, a whistleblower in Laverne, Tennessee, leaked information to the city's mayor about inappropriate contact between officers at the local police department. At the center of the scandal was 26-year-old married officer Megan Hall, who was accused of having affairs with several of her colleagues. There was also a rumor about a so-called Girls Gone Wild party at an officer's house. Hall initially denied any misconduct, but she eventually confessed to having intimate encounters and sharing explicit photos with 7 male officers, both on and off duty while on city property. She also described playing strip card games, sharing foot fetish photos, and attempting to persuade her husband, who also works in law enforcement, to swap partners with their colleagues. During questioning, Hall said that her marriage was falling apart and that it caused her to crack. And once she took that first leap, her behavior spiraled further and further out of control. 5 officers were fired, including Hall, and 3 were suspended, amounting to roughly 12% of the entire police force. The rest of the officers were required to undergo retraining on the agency's rules and expectations. Police Chief Burrell Chip Davis denied any prior knowledge of the affairs when he was questioned during a third-party investigation. But photos, videos, and text messages on his burner phone proved otherwise. And as a result, he was fired from his position. Hall's husband, Jedediah, has reportedly made the strong and arguably foolish decision to stand by his wife. The couple has said they plan to start counseling in order to rekindle their seemingly broken relationship. Number 6. Mark Jensen and Kelly Labonte. 40-year-old mother of 2, Julie Jensen, was found dead in her bed in 1998 at the Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin home she shared with her husband Mark and their 2 children. The next day, the neighbors showed police a note she'd written to them recently, which said that if anything bad happened to her, Mark was responsible. In the note, Julie mentioned a brief affair she had, which Mark had never forgiven her for. She also wrote that she suspected him of cheating and noted that she found it odd how he'd been pressuring her to drink alcohol with him recently. Julie predicted that Mark might try to kill her and claim she took her own life, which is exactly what he did when toxicology results came back, proving that his wife had been poisoned with antifreeze. Mark behaved strangely after Julie's death. He laughed and joked during her funeral and almost immediately packed all her things into garbage bags and got rid of them, removing any trace of her from their home. And as it turned out, Mark was having an affair with his co-worker Kelly Labonte. It started months before Julie's death, and Mark was suspiciously quick to have Kelly move in after she passed away. The couple then married the following year. In 2002, authorities finally felt they had enough evidence to try Mark for murder. He maintained his innocence and stood by his claims that Julie took her own life, despite overwhelming evidence that he'd meticulously planned to poison his wife to death. After years of delays, Mark was convicted of Julie's murder in 2008. He was then sentenced to life in prison as a result. However, he won a retrial in 2021 after bombarding the courts with appeal after appeal. And in early 2023, the jury again found him guilty for a second time. He's currently scheduled to be resentenced in April of 2023. And not surprisingly, Kelly Labonte divorced Mark after his 2008 conviction and has since remarried. Number 5. Robert Tellies and Roberta Lee Kennet. As a longtime reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, 69-year-old veteran reporter Jeff German had made his fair share of enemies. But it still came as a shock to his friends and colleagues when he was found stabbed to death in his yard in 2022. The suspect's vehicle was captured on surveillance footage, along with video of the perpetrator approaching German's home and attacking him in broad daylight. But these visuals alone weren't enough to provide police with any solid leads. The Review-Journal launched its own investigation into the murder. Based on the sloppiness of the crime, the team speculated that the suspect was an amateur killer rather than a seasoned criminal. While reviewing German's social media, they identified former Clark County Public Administrator Robert Tellies as a person of interest. German had written a series of brutal articles about Tellies, exposing his extramarital affair with his co-worker Roberta Kennet and revealing evidence of workplace hostility and mismanagement. Tellies allegedly blamed German for ruining his political career and his marriage, suggesting that he had plenty of motives to kill the journalist. Members of the Review-Journal drove past Tellies' home and saw a car in the driveway that looked identical to the one in the surveillance footage of the crime. Detectives acted on the lead and connected Tellies to the scene through DNA evidence. He was consequently charged with murder and remains behind bars while awaiting trial, which is scheduled for September of 2023. Number 4. Ann Miller and Daryl Willard. When an AIDS researcher from Raleigh, North Carolina named Eric Miller collapsed during a night out with his wife Ann and some of her co-workers in 2000, the source of his sudden illness was a mystery to doctors. That happened again just days later, and by the time doctors figured out that someone had poisoned him with arsenic, Eric was barely clinging to life. He passed away, and Ann naturally became a person of interest in the case. Investigators discovered that Ann was having an affair with her married co-worker Daryl Willard, and that the pair went on a romantic getaway to Chicago just days before Eric's death. They also found an arsenic compound called sodium cacodylate at Ann's workstation, but they didn't have enough evidence to make any arrests at that point. Willard took his own life in 2001 after police executed a search warrant on his home. He left behind a note apologizing to his family and maintaining his innocence in Eric's murder. His lawyer refused to reveal any incriminating information about Willard, citing attorney-client privilege, but the state Supreme Court finally forced him to give it up in 2004 after a lengthy court battle. The information gleaned from the records provided enough for authorities to finally charge Ann in connection with Eric's death. She pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was consequently sentenced to 25 to 31 years in prison. Number 3. Maria Quellar and David Miranda. When Maria Quellar separated from her husband Vicente and pursued a divorce, he refused to accept that their relationship was over. He began stalking his estranged wife, who worked as a school bus driver in El Paso County, Texas, and discovered that she was dating her co-worker, auto mechanic David Miranda. In December of 2015, Maria's body was found in the trunk of a burning car, and Miranda's remains were discovered in an orchard. Both of them had been shot to death. Vicente told detectives that he was with a friend, Alan Frere, at the time of the murders. When the police questioned both men, they were suspected of lying. Cell phone records later revealed that the victims and suspects were all near the orchard where Miranda was killed at around the same time neighbors reported hearing gunshots. Investigators also suspected Vicente and Frere of committing the murders together because one of them would have needed a getaway vehicle to flee the scene after torching the car Maria's body was found in. Vicente also denied having marital problems, but Maria's co-workers told a much different story, painting him out as cruel, possessive, and uncontrollably jealous. They also claimed to have witnessed Vicente following and surveilling Maria and Miranda shortly before their deaths. Authorities charged Vicente and Frere with capital murder, and they were both found guilty despite their adamant claims of innocence. They were each handed a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Both men appealed their convictions, but the court upheld the rulings. Number 2. Katrina Smith and Guy Gabriel. When 30-year-old Katrina Smith's marriage to her 44-year-old husband Todd began to fall apart, she vented to her married co-worker and friend Guy Gabriel. The human resources coordinator was supporting Todd and his 3 children from a previous relationship, even though everyone in their lives was under the impression that he was the breadwinner and a respectable family man. In reality, he'd landed himself in the center of some serious fraud allegations after allegedly screwing over his business partners. Todd was also controlling and insecure, and Katrina eventually got fed up. In 2012, she moved out of their shared home in Machesney Park, Illinois, and started living at a friend's apartment. By then, she and Guy Gabriel were entangled in a full-blown affair. Given his possessive ways, it's not surprising that Todd refused to accept that their marriage was over. Instead, he attached a tracking device to Katrina's car. Shortly after separating from her husband, the woman mysteriously vanished. It was also Todd who reported Katrina missing, claiming that she'd gone to the grocery store and never returned. He told police that they still lived together and that his wife was house-sitting at the condo, which detectives quickly discovered was a lie. A few days later, Katrina's car was found abandoned a few miles from her home. In it was a handmade card from Todd, begging her to reconsider working out their marriage and saying that he was terrified that she would find someone else. Investigators also found cell phone evidence showing that Todd was obsessively trying to get Katrina back. 3 weeks after she vanished, a fisherman found her body. She'd been brutally bludgeoned to death, and by that point, detectives had already found a baseball bat with Katrina's blood on it in Todd's garage, as well as the computer program he was using to track her whereabouts with a GPS device on her car. Prosecutors speculated that Todd found out about Katrina's affair through the information gleaned from the tracking device. They believed that Katrina likely told him she wanted a divorce, at which point he completely lost control of his anger and beat her to death with the bat. The defense pointed the finger at guy Gabriel, citing his history of domestic violence and accusing him of being a homewrecker who led Katrina astray from her marriage with sinister intentions. But the jury didn't buy it, and in 2017, Todd was found guilty of first-degree murder. And as a punishment for the brutal crime, he was sentenced to 59 years in prison. And at number 1, Carolyn Willis and Paul Solomon. Late one evening, back in 1989, schoolteacher Paul Solomon arrived at his home in Greenburgh, New York to find his wife, 40-year-old Betty Jean, dead from multiple gunshot wounds. Detectives confirmed Paul's alibi with the help of witnesses who vouched for his whereabouts, including his mistress, 28-year-old Carolyn Willis. Solomon met Willis, the daughter of an extremely wealthy multi-millionaire from Detroit, over a year earlier while teaching at the same school. However, the affair ended within months of Betty Jean's murder. Unwilling to accept that their relationship was over, Willis became obsessed with Solomon. She tried repeatedly to get him back, but he wasn't interested. Her behavior further derailed when she followed Solomon to Puerto Rico and discovered that he was traveling with a new girlfriend. A few months later, Willis suffered a nervous breakdown and was hospitalized for 7 days. By then, Solomon's new girlfriend had obtained an order of protection against her. Investigators quietly watched the drama unfold as Willis moved straight to the top of their suspect list. After discovering that she'd bought a gun matching the one used to kill Betty Jean shortly before the murder, prosecutors charged her with second-degree murder. Her first trial in 1991 ended in a hung jury, but she was convicted the following year at the conclusion of her second trial. Willis was paroled in 2019 after serving 27 years of a 25-to-life sentence. Unlike many other parolees, who are typically expected to admit their wrongdoings and show remorse in order to be considered for release, she managed to gain her freedom while maintaining her innocence in the crime. In all fairness, evidence that has come to light since the trial suggests that Paul was having multiple affairs and gained a lot of money from Betty Jean's life insurance payout. For those reasons alone, it's not hard to wonder if someone other than Willis could be responsible for the crime.
If you worked in retail and noticed somebody stealing an expensive item from the store, would you try and stop them, even if it meant that you could be injured? Or would you let them leave without intervention because you don't want to risk breaking protocol? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.